Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order our June 11th, 2020 strategic planning meeting. Ms. Secretary, all members are here. I'll put you on the spot, Mr. Ogeron. Would you like to lead us in an invocation?
Certainly, sir. Thank you for the offer. Rise. Please prepare yourselves for prayer. Lord God, I want to thank you for the opportunities you provide all of us living here in Ascension Parish. Lord, we also want to thank you for the recognition that you provide those of us sitting on this dais, the opportunity to serve our public, the opportunity to do so selflessly and with the best intentions. Lord, I also ask you to pass your blessings on to each one of us as we delve into the matters of public safety and public health, as we move forward in doing your work and doing the work for your children, Lord. With that, Lord, I ask that you continue watching over us, provide us a safe hurricane season, and keep in mind that the returning 2019 national champion Tigers started practice, and we're looking for a repeat this year, Lord. So any help you can give us in that fashion, we certainly do appreciate it. In Jesus' name we pray, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Ogeron. And on a personal note, I would like y'all to keep myself and my family in y'all's prayers. We laid my sweet grandmother, Jeanette Lambert, to her final resting place this week. If y'all could, I would appreciate it. Okay, let's public comment. Oh, there is no chairs additions. I'm sorry. Number 3, I don't have any chairs additions. Anyone? Everybody good? Okay, we will move on to item number 4, public comment. Look, and as far as the agenda, what we're going to do is address them one by one. We'll go A, discussion, vote, and we'll move on to B. So if you would like to talk about any one in particular, just put 5 and the letter next to it. And if you could, just hand your green or red slip right here to Miss Jessica, and she'll relay it up here to us. All right, well, we'll dive right into it. We'll move on to item 5A, approval of the February 10th, 2020 strategic planning minutes. The chair would entertain a motion.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, chair has a motion and a second. Any nay? Motion passed. We'll move on to item 5B, approval of the March 9th, 2020 strategic planning meetings.
So moved, Chairman.
We got a motion from
A second.
Councilman Dempsey, a second from Councilman Joel Robert. Any objection? So moved. All right. Move on to item 5C. Discussion and approval of proposed changes to Appendix 4 Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4032, Street Requirements, Roadway Width. And I'll go ahead and I will read the proposed change. So currently here in the parish for development, the road width that a development may go on is on average no less than 18 feet. Chair is proposing that we upgrade that to 20 feet in width. So due to the limited space on many Ascension Parish roads, there's a safety concern when large vehicles pass one another. Based on several conversations with school board personnel, we understand that the average bus width is 9 foot 7 inches. In order to ensure a development considers the safety of our children on roads, we would like to propose the following revision to the subdivision ordinance, which takes into account the width of 2 school buses passing one another with a 10-inch safe zone between them. proposed revision would be, no major or minor subdivision may be developed on any street which is, on average, less than 20 foot in pavement width. And the way this will be determined is that the Public Works will determine the average width of the road by measuring from pavement edge to pavement edge every 50 feet between two roads that are identified in Appendix 8 of the ULDC, Major Street Plan, or Master Transportation Plan, whichever is more current. In no instance may any portion of the street be less than 18 foot wide. Do we have any speakers on this one, Ms. Jessica? One speaker, okay. Mr. Bart Wagasback? You have 3 minutes, sir. There should be a little timer right here in front of me, and you'll be able to see how much time you have.
Okay.
And are you on the clock?
All right. Well, I'm Bart Wagasback. I've lived in Ascension Parish my entire life, and I've been building houses in Ascension Parish for over 20 years now. And I'm going to get up and talk about several of these items. But on this one, I just wanted to point out, unfortunately, I don't own a large block of land, but a lot of people in Ascension Parish do, and there are a lot of streets that are less than 20 feet, but would meet the 18-foot rule. And, just wanted to point out for everybody to keep in mind, a lot of those families that own that property, if you pass this to increase to 20 feet, that property that they thought they were going to sell and retire on, or, they were counting on that money, that property is going to lose significant value. I mean, it's basically going to be worth farmland at that point, until you wait on the parish to come through and widen the road, which may never happen, or, maybe 10 years down the road and too late for that homeowner. So that's really all I wanted to point out, just to kind of look at a different side of who may be affected by that rule. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Bart. Is there any other public comment on item 5A? I'm sorry, 5C? Okay. Oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to keep referencing them? Okay. Okay. Look, I see there's quite a few people who put multiple items on one card. I'm gonna try to keep track. If we're on a certain item and I do skip over you, just please make me aware. Okay, let's see. Mr. Billy Aguilar?
Good afternoon, Billy Aguilar. I don't know where y'all get the 9'7" for a school bus width, because any vehicle has to be 8 foot wide, or you have to have a wide load permit over 8 foot to be able to operate the bus down the street. Here's a specification sheet from Bluebird buses, which I think most of the school buses in the Ascension Parish are Bluebirds, and they are 96 inches wide, which is 8 foot.
That with the stop sign?
Anyway, I mean, there's an 8-foot bus with 10-inch clearance in an 18-foot road works. Thank you.
If I remember correct, it was my understanding that was outside of mirror to outside of mirror is what we measured the bus at. Okay. All right. Miss Teresa Robert.
Good evening. I'll be brief. I really wasn't quite sure. I read through it, and I brought myself a copy of the plan and all that, and I left it at home. But Really appreciate y'all looking at this. We went through all of those hearings, remember when we did our new master plan? And the two most important things in there were infrastructure, 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 and safety. And this is certainly plays right into that, and we appreciate y'all making the effort to start upgrading our rules and regulations. And this may not be the time to do it, but I'd really like to encourage y'all to set up a citizens panel of there are many citizens, a hand of us here tonight, that would really like to work with y'all as you consider these different things, not just what's on here tonight, because we want to improve our infrastructure here. We want development, but we want it done in a responsible way. And we really have a bad record in this parish, and that's why there were so many changes in this past election. Thank you.
Chair, can members of the dais question speakers at this time, or should we?
I would prefer just to get through the public comment, and if we want, we can take notes on what certain, on
Okay.
what certain citizens said, if you'd like to go back and address them.
Perfect, I appreciate it, thank you.
All right, let's see. Nope, not C. Ms. Charlotte Roussel? Oh, okay, I didn't even look at the, yeah, I'm sorry. Miss Charlotte wishes not to speak, but she does support. Okay, Miss Melanie, I'm gonna murder your last name, I'm sorry. Usry?
Perfect.
Yeah, okay.
That's right.
Got it.
Okay, I'm speaking on behalf of Denise Draco, who couldn't be here tonight. She'd like to thank you, Chase, for doing in the committee, for looking into the traffic, study grades, and road widths. She said, thank you for all your time and hard work. With the changes proposed, it would help to protect our parish and our residents. For too long now, the developers have twisted our codes and regulations for their benefit. I fully support that any road be at least 20 feet wide for a new subdivision to be built on it. This is a safety issue for residents. We must consider buses, their widths, 2 buses passing each other safely with our children on them. I also fully support that all intersections be at a grade D or above. Adding more businesses or subdivisions to heavy traffic areas with a grade below a D is just irresponsible and would make traffic unbearable, endangering our lives on the roads. So I fully support all the changes that you're proposing tonight. She does, and I do as well.
Thank you. Let's see. Miss Christina Guidry?
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you taking the time and looking at these issues that affect all of us in the parish. And we've heard so many times people are concerned with our roads, our infrastructure. Thank you to all those who come to talk on this issue too. So I feel like everybody that I've talked to has an issue with our roads and with the infrastructure, so thank you for addressing it. Looking at things in general, I know we're looking at subdivision particularly now, but these roads really need some work. With the width, one of the concerns are that there's really not shoulders on a lot of our roads, and so if somebody has to pull over, a lot of times they're gonna go in a ditch, and that just increases the severity of accidents. So not only do I think we should look at the width of the road, but also adding shoulders to all of the roads. Someone had spoke about the subdivisions, and although we really feel, I feel for the people who are planning on that land, and the increase is gonna be difficult for them. I've lived in areas where the change of rules has affected me, but you know what? You go on, and I think as opposed to one person's interest, I think we have to look at this as the whole citizens as a whole and our safety, not just, what works. I think we need to look at not just benefiting subdivision developers or people of large acreage, although, there's a place for them, we feel for them, but we've got to look out for the safety. And I do want to talk on some other things later on, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Christina. And let's see, I think we got one. Miss Catherine Goppold?
Good evening, members. It's been a difficult year. hasn't it? I am very encouraged that we're looking at the subdivision regulations and the other things that you got on your agenda for tonight. And I would encourage you to do what you can going forward. We can't change what's happened in the past. It's done. And the suggestion to put shoulders on all the roads, we'd have to put culverts in all those ditches, and it's too expensive, unless the people want to support, put up the cost of that, and very few would do that. So I think going forward, it is a good idea to improve the Unified Development Land Code. I'm going to be leaving shortly, so I can't speak on all these other items. If you would allow me, I'd like to say the three things that I really like what you're doing is to not include right-of-ways and driveways and park areas in your calculation of density and servitudes as well. That would make a big difference. I would again say about the recommendation or the suggestion that Ms. Robert had. We do need to review the master plan because that plan intends to increase the density in our parish. And we have a deficit in the infrastructure. We need to get our regulations going forward strengthened, and we need to look at that plan, if that's really the right thing for Ascension Parish at this time. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you for bringing these forward. I ask you to move these favorably onto the council. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. All right, let's see. And is there anybody else who want to talk specifically about item C, the road width from 18 to 20 foot? Miss Susan Nickens Jordan? I'll go ahead and let everybody know that Miss Jordan here taught me in 4th grade at Lake Primary School, so I will be on my best behavior.
How many times did he have to repeat 4th grade, Mr. Jordan?
None. He went straight through. Great student. I wasn't planning to speak, but I'm only up here because I want to support. I was the assistant principal for 6 years at Dutchtown Middle and for 5 years at Lakeside Primary. I was in charge of buses. I cannot tell you how many times our buses, the mirrors that stick out, would hit each other, fly off the bus. They would have accidents. Maybe they went into a ditch. This happened frequently. So the roads being wider, that really needs to be done, especially like the Bluff Road where the roads are curvy and they're narrow. That does happen. The other thing I'd like to say is I was here last night to speak out against a new subdivision, Hidden Lakes, and making the requirement, the road to have to be 20 feet, that would help prevent subdivisions off of roads like my road. That would help a lot of people. Until we get the roads up to speed, let's not put big developments on them. So that's all. I just wanted to make that comment because I can speak about the buses and the issues with the mirrors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see. And just got one more. Miss Renee LaBeouf.
I don't quite understand what is exactly going on because I am just reading this for the first time. But from what I'm understanding, y'all wanting to widen the roads.
So what we're proposing is so right now, major or minor subdivision, within our code, it can be built onto a road that is 18 foot wide. And we're proposing to upgrade that from 18 foot to the road that a subdivision is going to be on needs to be 20 foot wide.
Which will open up for more development.
You would,
Okay, so I live on Tiger Lewis Road.
okay.
It's 16 foot wide.
Mm-hmm.
Spent 2 years in a lawsuit because land was taken from me. The reason that, and I'm on the backside of Keystone off of Norwood,
Okay.
because that road was 16 foot wide, it kept them from coming through my street and getting to that subdivision. And it also slowed the progression of that development. I hope all the roads stay narrow because I'm sick of the development. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Thank you. And that is all the speakers on item C. I don't want to leave anybody out. And I know with the social distancing, is there a chance we have anybody in the lobby that I'm leaving out maybe we don't have room for? I know that was an issue last night. How about that, Councilman Lawler? Would you take a peek for me? All right, thank you. Okay, at this time, the chair will open up for comments. And I'd like to start with you, Mr. Ogeron.
Thank you, sir. I too am concerned with unbridled advancement, unbridled development. But just as much, I'm also concerned with using logic, using common sense, using data to provide us with these numbers that we come up with. I've been on the council now for 5 months. And in this period of time, we keep proposing things like this. Let's go from 18 to 20 feet. And I ask, do we have a study? Has an engineer's taken a look at this and told us that 20 feet is the optimum width? Is it really 18? Could it be 16? Should it be 24? We don't know. It seems that the reason Ascension Parish keeps falling behind the 8 ball is that no one is doing the research and the work up front to make these determinations. Just like the young lady that just finished speaking. You know, her concern is we want to increase it from 18 to 20. And her fear is that's going to increase development once that road is built, once the roads are widened. I understand those concerns. I don't know if that's the case or not. I'm not a traffic engineer. I know we have a lot of traffic engineers on payroll. You know, we've contracted with a lot of folks in this parish to do these kind of studies and do this work, but somehow, shape, or form, we don't use them up front. We wait until the back end of it to say, oh my goodness, we screwed up. What do we do to fix it? And we need to start being proactive with what we're trying to get done with this parish. And putting little bitty Band-Aids on significant issues is not the way for us to go. And it's not the way for us to go voting on this measure at this time. I haven't seen any data, any information, any logic, any science, anything that tells me 18 to 20 is the right answer. Instead, all I know is that certain individuals who are going to personally benefit from limiting the size of subdivisions in this parish are pushing this issue. We have certain individuals in this parish who own smaller tracts of land who are looking forward to eliminating larger subdivisions so that now their property becomes the only game in town. That's what's taking place in this parish. That's what's happening here. They're finally getting their voice out, and they're strategically putting things in place so that their property is the only game in town, is the only property that's going to be developed. We need to make sure that we're not like Robin Hood, stealing from the rich and giving to the poor, or stealing from the poor and giving to the rich. Instead, we need to work together. This group up here, group of citizens, I asked in the last administration to be on a board that would help with the master plan. We need to get together and we need to focus and we need to strenuously concentrate on what are the best options for Ascension Parish and stop using Band-Aids. I'm sorry, but based upon this, I cannot support something that does not provide me scientific fact to back it up. And Mr. Chair, that's my position. I appreciate you giving me time to speak, really do. Thanks a lot,
Okay.
and condolences for your grandmother.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Lambert, Mr. Robert?
So we come up with the number 20 foot because it's 20 foot from mirror to mirror on a school bus? That's correct?
9'7", mirror to mirror.
So you're giving yourself about 10 in, okay,
10-inch safety zone between the two buses.
okay. Now, if we're looking at a 2-foot difference, you're adding safety. You're not hurting anything here. I don't see it stopping a development in the sense of how is it going to make a development not feasible by changing it from 18 to 20 foot? You know, if it's not in the spot that it needs to be done, then it's not in the spot it needs to be done. Secondly, as far as to reference what Councilman Ogeron spoke of is I believe it's a theory of the small property owners wanting the developers not to come in. The reason I disagree with that is because now this is the best time it has been in my lifetime to be any type of small property owner. I mean, you can sell and flip your property like that where you never have before because there's so much of a demand of people coming in here because of the development. I've dealt with real estate my whole life and currently have done some of this stuff the last couple of years and the market is the best it has been because of that. We're not really asking for a lot. We're asking for 2 feet. You know, I would be willing to go look at possibly saying 18 feet and a sidewalk. I mean, I'd love to start seeing some sidewalks in these subdivisions because we have these people on top of people and we're looking to build subdivisions for connectivity in the future. So sidewalks would be a great idea. I mean, I'd be all about 18 foot with a 2-foot sidewalk on both sides, but, you know, I feel like we are taking reasonable and rational steps to create a better environment and a better Ascension Parish. As far as the master plan, panel of citizens to review, I think that's a great idea. I feel like the beginning of this year with everything happening has kind of put all of that on pause. And it's about that time now that we do start picking up these different items and getting back into it. So, you know, I support. Actually, I'm going to stop there. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Cagnolati, any comment?
No comment.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one rebuttal.
Okay. Mr. Ogeron, go ahead.
I'm trying to make heads or tails of what we're proposing here, and forgive me, I didn't have a chance to speak to any of you guys earlier today. Are we saying that the roads within the new development have to be 20 foot wide, or is it any road that is adjacent to the new development also has to be 20 foot wide?
Yeah, so any road that entrance or exit of a neighborhood.
Sure.
So any point of egress, whichever road that is, may it Parish Road, State Road, that road needs to average 20 foot.
That road needs to average 20 foot.
Right.
Does anybody on this dais know how many parish roads are 20 foot wide right now? Okay, so we don't have a map that kind of gives us that, right?
Well, we do. Mr. Drone sent us one yesterday, I believe.
Okay. That will tell us essentially what areas are allowed to have new development and what areas are not?
Yeah, I believe Mr. Drone marked all the roads that would be under 20 foot. He highlighted those on the parish map for us.
I didn't see that, so
Yes.
I didn't get that. So I think one other thing is maybe before we vote, all of us have the opportunity to see that map so we can have a, more conscientious, understanding of the process. Second, we're talking safety, and we're going to say that a particular road on a bus route needs to be at least 20 foot wide. But there could be other roads on that same route that are under 20 foot. Are we going to suggest that the buses don't travel on any of those? I'll give you, for example, same bus that travels on Highway 73 travels on Duplessis. I know Duplessis isn't 20 foot wide because I think I can still get my 55-year-old butt to jump over the whole road. So we have that as an issue. So if we're talking safety, you're not going to create safety if you're fixing one particular street or you're forcing a particular street within a development to widen itself out when every other road that it travels does not. So you've got that as an issue with it. And Chase, I want to clear this up. I don't disagree with the concept that we need to do some things regarding safety. But I think that this is jumping ahead of the game. I think we need a little more information, and I think we need to look at this a little more logically to understand what can happen and what's going to happen to commerce in the parish. I, for one, think that if it's adjacent roads, I think we're losing a huge number of properties in this parish that are going to be forced to stay out of commerce. I would recommend we consider all factors before we make a decision on something like this. But I appreciate you giving me time the second go round. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Any more comments?
Do you have that map tonight?
Yes, we have it available, and we can project it up on the screen.
Can we do
Oh,
that now?
okay.
John just popped it up there, okay? And if we expand in on it a little bit, there's some, it's a
Goodness, I can't
purplish
make
color
heads or tails
for
of
all the
that.
properties, all the roads that are less than 20 feet in width are noted in a purplish color. The orange are roads that are less than 20 feet that are within a subdivision that's already been developed, right? So the major roads you'll see out there in the purplish color, right? And so, Norwood Road, Parker Road, some of the highways in the parish,
Goodness.
all of those roads are less than 20 feet in width.
That's what, 80% of the roads out there?
We don't have a linear distance that are calculated in comparison to with all the streets, so, that's.
There's more purple than white on this map.
Now, all the other roads connecting to them, can you kind of point those out around the purple where the road's cutting off, but it's existing over 20 foot?
Can you?
Yeah, so I don't have control of the Zoom, so,
Because I can't tell whether some of them are like waterways or roads.
no, everything that you're seeing here are roads.
Okay,
Um,
so that brings to my point, if you can kind of go back a little bit more, how you were? with
So
the
zoom out just a touch,
Yeah.
John.
All right. All of these purple places have roads all around them. Any significant amount of property that you're going to do of development, which I would assume we're talking about 20 acres, 30 acres, 40 acres, things of that sort of a small development. I don't know. You would have other avenues to reach highways or to have your egress regress on other highways adjacent to these roads, correct?
Not necessarily, but that you could assemble lands, you could do other things to get there. I mean, there was a project that was, I believe, denied in the last year or two that was, it fronted on Cannon, but that developer went through the process of securing an additional access out onto Roddy. It was denied due to other,
And
traffic
that brings
reasons,
me
but.
to my- Yeah, that brings me to my other point. Duplessis Road, Cannon Road. You brought up Duplessis Road. Do we want to hold the rest of our parish to a standard whenever we have roads like Duplessis that can do it now? No, I don't want any other road in the parish to be like Duplessis. I don't think anything else should be developed on Duplessis as Cannon Road. I mean, if you're going down Cannon Road and you're about to pass somebody, and I mean, this,
Could we please scroll further down, further south in the parish?
do we have any property owners here tonight that are, I mean, not builders, property owners?
Robert's rules.
Yeah. Just stick to your comment, please, Mr. Robert. All right. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Cagnolati?
Yeah, I see the map, and I've heard comments, both good and bad, on both sides. And there's two sides to every issue. But as Councilman Ogeron said, we don't have the data. We don't have the complete data here. Have we studied how many roads will be impacted and which roads those will be going forward? And then how many tracts of land will be impacted going forward? We don't have answers to that. So and I heard a comment about maybe set up a citizens panel to look into this. And hire the experts, not hire them, but bring them in and let them give their testimony to what they think is right. So I'll have to agree, I'd like to see this put down the road a little bit until we can get more information.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, Mr. Robey. One more go.
Councilman Cagnolati makes a good point. You know, let's get this information. Let's look at it. Let's have it for this next strategic planning committee meeting. That'll give people an opportunity to come out, any landowners, anybody that has any skin in the game as far as property on these roads. It'll give us an opportunity to see which roads could not be, or properties could not be accessible from roads around it. But once we have that information, I want to see this going to the full council. So I mean, I'm okay with, I'll make a motion to move it to the next strategic planning meeting.
Will that give us enough time is the question?
Absolutely. I mean, we already have the highlights, we have the.
Mr. Compton, comment?
So when this new administration took over and, you know, I was brought back, one of the things that we were asked to do was put a magnifying glass on the development code and try to look at things that would not only potentially save the parish money, but make the roads safer and protect our children and do things like that. I reached out to Chad Lynch with the school board and I said, I want you to go out and measure your buses. I want you to do mirror to mirror so we know what we need to drive down the road safely. We are not going to cure the sins of the past. We are simply saying that a new subdivision should not be approved on a road where buses cannot safely pass. Whatever data you want us to collect, we'll be happy to collect it. But the number we chose is not arbitrary. It's factual and based on the buses that are in our system. Chad Lynch gave me those numbers. We wrote the code on how we want to measure those roads so that there's no more gray. There's no more saying, well, the road average is 18, but you know there's some dips and it gets down to 16. That's not acceptable to us. So what we did is we wrote a rule that says new subdivisions cannot exit on roads that are less than 20-foot average based on this measurement technique. It's not arbitrary. So whatever data you want us to collect, please specify because we'll go get it and present it back to you. But trust me, 20 feet is not arbitrary. Fire trucks, school buses.
Chair would also like to make comment that I am in huge favor of the 20-foot. I agree. The Cannon roads, the Duplessis roads, we can't undo what's been done for decades, but we can improve the future. We can expect better expectations than what we've had for the past 10 to 20 years on our development. And 20-foot at minimum, you should never take the risk for a school bus. And I have been asked a question: how often do school buses pass each other? Anybody ever been to Prairieville Middle School around 4 o'clock? I mean, that's like a demolition derby. I feel terribly sorry for them school bus drivers. I mean, that's just unacceptable conditions. So at this point, Chair would entertain a motion. If there's any other comments, administration, Mr. President?
When this was brought to me and we took a look specifically at the 20-foot distance and we had contacted the school board for that accurate information. Personally, I felt that 20 foot was not enough. I wanted to go even further with shoulders and require shoulders. So 20 foot is the minimum from what I feel comfortable with per the school board's recommendations on 2 buses passing safely. And so this was, in my opinion, be the minimum of safety requirements, minimum. And never do I ever feel, ever, when looking at regulations, do I put a dollar amount for someone to make a profit in Ascension Parish versus safety of our citizens and our kids in our parish, ever. It's safety first, and that's what I've been elected to do, is to provide a safety environment within our rules and regulations to ensure that when our kids get picked up on school buses and these things happen, that they, as much as possible, Yes, we can't widen every road in Ascension Parish, but we can stop putting a lot of kids on unsafe roads without them being widened and safety. So 20 foot, in my opinion, is the bare minimum for safety requirements based on the information that Ricky Compton presented. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I want to withdraw my original motion to move it to the next meeting, and I'll make a motion to move this to council based on the numbers and based on the data that we do have there. That'll give any property owners a time and a chance to come before full council where this real decision will be made anyways. So my motion is to move this to council.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Robert to approve motion to move to the full council. Do I have a second? Chair does not have a second. The motion fails, and that will not pass through.
Would the chair entertain an alternative motion?
The chair will.
Okay. I move that we return this issue to, and submit it to the Planning Commission for them to vet through it and do further research before sending it back to us.
So this came through planning. This
This
has
one
been-
already has gone through planning, I'm sorry.
Yes,
I
and
didn't think it had.
March, I believe. Yeah, this has come through planning.
Okay,
and-
my
and-
apologies.
Yeah, and it's come to strategic.
Okay, my apologies. I'll withdraw that motion since they've already had the opportunity to look at it.
Okay. All right, we are moving on to item 5D. We're going to, discussion and approval of proposed changes, Appendix 4, subdivision regulations, density restrictions. All right. Let's see, major subdivisions are held to a different standard than individual lots. Section 17-4042.c of the ULDC states in determining lot area, the area of the public street, servitude, roadway, or driveway shall not be considered. And I'll just give it in layman terms the best I know how. In a development, any right-of-way or servitude you have on either side of your property, that can be figured into the area of a developmental lot. If you're doing a property, a family partition or simple division, you are not allowed to use that same area into. So I guess the most basic example I could give, if in Ascension Parish, if you're doing a family partition, simple division, half acre is the smallest lot you can make. If you have a 1 acre lot with 200 feet of road frontage, but 1/10 of that is either servitude or right of way, it only leaves you with 0.9 acres, so you cannot subdivide that lot. So what I'm doing here is we're actually, I'm gonna go ahead and read all three descriptions because I'm proposing three alternative ideas here. It's, not just a this or that. So our first suggestion would be a total, I'm sorry, losing my iPad here. Okay, there we go. All right, the net developable area. Okay, total allowed units for a subdivision are calculated by utilizing net density. So if they got 100 acres, they can put 300 homes, but it doesn't mean that each home has to be on 1/3 of an acre. All right, so what we're proposing is net density is calculated by subtracting out all of the following that are not part of any recreation system from the gross site area. Any portion of pipelines, servitude, right-of-ways that are not within a development lot, existing or proposed road right-of-ways, existing drainage servitude that are not mitigated through the development, non-mitigated wetlands, and existing water bodies that are not improved to comply with drainage ordinance. Sidewalks within the right-of-way are not considered part of the recreation system when computing density or required park area. So a long version short is that I'm proposing that a developmental lot in a subdivision goes by the same criteria as an individual lot owner. That's suggestion 1. Okay, suggestion 2 is when in determining the lot area, the area of the public street be taken and roadway be taken out whenever the individuals are going to subdivide. So basically, we'll allow the individual homeowner to use the same formula that a developer can use. So we're on an even playing field. And then the third suggestion is lowering the overall maximum density, lower the overall maximum residential density in the RM residential zoning category from its current 3 units per acre to 2.5. And I don't actually know if I'm making my layman's term any easier for y'all, but our 3 options are that individual homeowner can use the same guidelines as a developer. Developer has to start abiding by the same guidelines that individual property owner does, or we lower the density together. So at this point, I will open my public comment. And let's see, Mr. Billy Aguilar.
Billy Aguilar, thank you again for letting me speak tonight. Mr. Malonzo, the 3 things here you got, number 1 is, I guess I need to ask Rick, what does the ordinance say now, Rick? You can do, if you got 100 acres, you can do 300 lots? Total acres?
Yes, sir. So generally speaking, you would calculate your net area, lessing out the things that you're not going to mitigate or use. You'd use that math in your calculation.
What does the existing ordinance say, though? Does the existing ordinance list all of these things that you cannot use as total acreage?
Yes, sir. You help me write that.
So I thought I did, that's what I'm saying. But, and I opposed to it back then because you can have unmitigated wetlands and you can underbrush them and still let them be wetlands and use them as recreational areas, which we have done in a number of subdivisions in the past. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. And the sidewalks within the right-of-ways, there's probably every subdivision we've done in the last 10 years that has sidewalks in it, that has walking trails in it, part of those sidewalks are in some of the street right-of-ways for dedicated walking trail for recreational use. Is that not correct?
Yes, sir.
So I'm saying, why change it? Why, it's part of what you're using for acreage, it's good uses for recreational use. Why change what we already are doing? And then in determining for individual lots, you say you want to make it equal, that an individual lot, person can, when they doing I guess you're talking about family petitions, is that what we're talking about, family petitions?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what the ordinance says about family petition, but I didn't think it at all required taking out street, because a family petition has to be on an existing street, so the street is not part of the area anyway.
So if an existing piece of property wants to be subdivided, and any portion of that current piece of property contains right-of-way, that right-of-way is not counted when they go to do division. And so that piece of right-of-way could make the property too small to divide because of the way the current rules say you cannot count right-of-way in existing lots. And so what we're simply saying is, we either allow those people to include the right-of-way, or we don't allow developers to include the right-of-way. We are in favor of simply allowing the individual property owners to count that right-away, because they own it.
Yeah, I'm saying if they own it, they should be able to include it. And
That's
I agree
our
with that.
position. We just offered multiple options because there's, 100 ways.
Yeah,
to
Mr.
skin it.
Aguilar, I hate to jump in, but that's why we give 3 options. We're not saying, going just after any development. I'm just trying to make it an even playing
I'm just
field.
trying to get it clarified on what we're trying to, the 3 options, I'm assuming you're gonna pass all 3 options is what you
No,
asking for.
no, there are 3 options.
One.
Okay, you only gonna pass one of the 3 is what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay. I agree that the individual lot owner should be able to use for areas, public streets, servitudes, or roadways, driveways, everything on their private property. I agree with that wholeheartedly. I don't agree with number 1, and I don't agree with number 3.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Mr. Bart Weisbach?
And I'll keep it quick. I agree with Mr. Billy there. I mean, number 2, I read all that. It was really confusing. I didn't follow what y'all were trying to accomplish with that until just now, but I definitely think an individual landowner should be able to use, count their entire lot.
Welcome to our world.
Okay.
We have to
Yeah.
read that and try to decipher it daily. Thank you, Mr. Bart. Okay, I'm not seeing, oh, I'm sorry, it's Miss Catherine Goppold? No, okay, she left, okay, she is in favor of one of the three, I'm assuming. Okay, at this point, Chair will open up, comments. Oh, Mr. Derek, let's see where you at. I got a few piles up here. Oh, all right, Mr. Derek Murphy, I apologize, I put you in the one speaker pile.
Sorry about that. Derek Murphy. Council members, good evening. A couple things I just wanted to mention. First of all, of course, I don't have a problem with, if you have land, then it should be part of your calculations. It should be part of the servitude, whether you're using it or not. It shouldn't come out of your net area or overall area. Number two, as far as the right-of-way dealing with developments, there's a couple things to keep in mind. When you're talking about they're not treated equal, that also goes by construction standards, because when you look at an individual or family partition, they're allowed to put in a gravel road, they're allowed to put in different types of construction. With a development, there's several things they gotta do. They gotta have drainage, curb, gutter usually, sewer, and everything, and they even have to set up a road infrastructure district now or be private. So there's a lot of different things, part of that. The other thing is, with the code how it is today, you can look at that piece of property, take out pipeline right-of-ways if you're not gonna use it for part of your recreation, you can take out different things, and you can come up with about how many lots you're gonna get. With trying to figure out, take out the right-of-way of the road, you start getting it into the chicken and the egg scenario, where you start, well, I think I'm gonna get this, but then when you start doing the layouts, well, I gotta pull this out, and I gotta pull this out, so you don't even know what you got until you get to the end, and if the project is even feasible. So bottom line is, I think there are differences, but I do think that people ought to, if they own the property, they ought to be allowed to use it in their densities. And I think construction standards, I think it is a whole different animal as far as trying to look at what each individual project is, that they are actually separate and different types of projects. Thank you.
All right. Okay, I believe that's all public speakers. Am I missing anybody? Everybody's good? Okay. I'll tell you what, Mr. Cagg, I'll go back and forth. Mr. Cagg, comment?
I have no comment. I've heard enough.
All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Robert?
I'll defer for now.
Okay. Mr. Lambert? Mr. Ogeron? Okay. Look, and like I said, whenever I was presenting, I'm not, with this, strictly not trying to go after the, developers or development. I want an even playing field. And I would like to point out, so Mr. Murphy mentioned that, so a subdivision, they do have to do drainage and studies and everything, but they also, but you're also allowed to put 50% more homes on a piece of land than anybody who does a simple division, 3 homes per acre to 2 for your average citizen. All right, so that's pretty much all I have to say. Chair would entertain a motion one way or the other.
I'll make a motion for option B. I don't have the thing in front of me. Let me see it.
Okay,
To where
option
the
2 for
individual landowners have the same rights as the development, where they can also use their right-of-way as part of their property.
Okay. Chair has a motion for suggestion 2, which would allow individual landowners to use their public street, roadway, right-of-way. A second from anyone? No?
I'll second
All right.
option 2.
Got a,
I'll second option 2. I think that's fair.
okay. All right, everyone in favor of suggestion 2?
Oppose.
Okay, we have opposition. Madam Secretary, roll call.
Councilman Ogeron?
Yay.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert?
No.
Councilman Chase Melissa?
Yes.
Councilman Joel Robert,
Yes.
Councilman John Cagnolati,
Yes.
All right, motion passes, 4-1. Moving on to item E. Let's see. I'm sorry, let me catch up here. Okay, cul-de-sacs. Item E, discussion and approval of proposed changes to Appendix 4 subdivision regulations, Section 17-4020, major subdivision design guidelines, internal road systems. All right. All right, so the proposed change is in Section 17-4020 E-5, a cul-de-sac as described in Section 17-40100. We eliminate the option of a T turnaround, and we are adding the literature, a T turnaround will be allowed only where the planning commission, in its discretion, determines there may be a need for future connectivity to adjoining properties or on private servitudes of access. Let me see if I have, Mr. Derek Murphy.
Council members, the only thing on this one I just asked for you to consider is, we pretty much got rid of T-turnarounds almost in every instance. But there are some cases where if we could put, in other areas, they put a limitation on street length, like 500 feet. Anything greater than 500 feet, you can't have a T-turnaround because it's a small development or there's a small finger or something that could inhibit, there's not really any traffic down that road. So if you consider putting, no T-turnarounds on any roads longer than 500 or 600 or something, I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that, but that's just something I'd like to suggest.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that's my only speaker here.
Congrats.
Mr. Billy.
I put the A, B, C, D, F, G, H, or J. I put all of them on there.
I don't know. I didn't through you to, oh, here you are. That's why. I'm sorry. Yep. All right, Mr. Billy Aguilar.
Thank you, Mr. Malonzo, again. I kind of agree with what Derek had to say. In most of the subdivisions, the T-turnarounds are on little short streets that may be 100 foot, 200 foot long. I think that's fine, but if you get to 500, 600 feet, I agree with it. It should have a cul-de-sac, something for the school bus everybody can turn around on. The only thing I don't like is when it says at the planning commission's discretion. I think it needs to be identified when you have T-turnarounds, when you have cul-de-sacs, and so it's not left up to their discretion because that doesn't work too good sometimes. Thank you.
All right. All right. That's all the public speakers. All right. Mr. Ogeron, comment?
No comment.
Mr. Lambert?
Just one, and this would go to staff. Here, connectivity. Ricky, what would this help, the connectivity?
Well, Councilman, I think where we're headed with this is we know, for the most part, if a new subdivision is coming adjacent to an existing subdivision, we are not going to get connectivity. The existing residents don't want it. The council does not want that. We aren't going to fight that fight anymore. But if you have a development that has vacant land next to it, we're simply saying we will allow a T turnaround at the property line where a future connection is going to be required. And that's what we're saying. And there's another section down here that says that. We want to require it for future subdivisions so they can't say we didn't know that was going to happen. We want to put a sign at the end of that T turnaround and we want to say this will connect to a future development at some future date, sometime in the future. So that helps your school buses, it helps your garbage trucks, it helps your police and your fire and all those public services from having to get out on your major roads to serve multiple developments.
I'm okay with it.
Mr. Robert?
No comment.
Mr. Cagnolati?
The only comment on this is that it's an issue that I've had discussion at the city level and again now at the parish level for 4 years, and it seems to come up every time. And every time it's addressed, it's a nightmare for firefighters. It's a nightmare for police, even the ambulance drivers. We have so many areas, one way in, cul-de-sac, or a T turnaround, and one way out. And if something's happening, like a flood, it presents problems. So I, for one, feel like the public would like to see better connectivity. The public safety people and the first responders would like to see more connectivity in the parish, just so you'd have alternate routes. And that is a safety factor. So that's my comment. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Ogeron?
First off, I was, and I'm glad my council members have enlightened me on the safety issue. Same for you, Mr. Compton. Thank you for enlightening me on that. I'm reading through the document, and I'm reading through the amendment that you are proposing, and is this really necessary? We're not telling the, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but the way I'm reading this, it says a T turnaround will be allowed, Planning Commission in its discretion determines there may be a need for future connectivity. So are we saying T turnarounds are not going to be required?
We only want T turnarounds where future connectivity will happen.
Otherwise,
so why
we want a
don't we want
cul-de-sac.
it elsewhere?
Otherwise, we want a cul-de-sac, because what you do with the T turnaround is you require the bigger vehicles to do a multi-point turn. So they have to pull in, they have to back out, they have to pull forward. So there's lots of things they can hit, lots of, distractions. A cul-de-sac or a roundabout at the end of a road, you never have to back up. You make one complete turn and movement, and it's much easier for garbage trucks, fire trucks, school buses. So what we're saying is, unless your dead-end road is at a property line that could potentially connect to a future neighborhood, we want that dead end to be a cul-de-sac.
In a cul-de-sac, and again, I'm trying to educate myself here. Cul-de-sac, we have cars that are parked on the street that would be interfering with the ability to turn around. In a T, you necessarily would not. In a T, you have a dead end and you have a T. So I'm trying to figure out your argument there. I'm trying to make heads or tails out of that particular argument that you just presented to us.
Councilman Ogeron, and Chairman and members of the committee, you can't.
Forgive
see
me, I'm
over
having
here.
to sit up so I can see who's speaking.
That's all right.
Oh, that's my buddy Jerome. Hey, Jerome.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, we've discovered it's a little bit of the opposite, because
Okay.
when you see some of the T-turnarounds, we're seeing that people are using these as a parking lot for a lot of cases. And, it limits the ability of operators to make the turns that Ricky described, all right? With a cul-de-sac, you see a big circular motion, and they can certainly easily make that maneuver, and make that U-turn that they need to do in a cul-de-sac, and that's what we've discovered over the.
I'll make a motion to amend.
Make a motion.
To amend.
You finished with your public, with your comment?
Not exactly.
Okay, go ahead. Wait till Councilman Ogeron finishes.
Wait your turn,
I'll
Robert.
make a motion to apologize.
Motion accepted. Sorry, Chair. And I guess that's the question I'm asking, and I'm glad we're having this discussion, guys, because it's important to get this information out to the public so that they don't think we're just haphazardly picking on certain people. The T-turnaround, so what you're asking is the T-turnarounds will be permissible, but only at dead-end streets where there will be connectivity. So you can't put a T-turnaround anywhere else in a development. Is that going to be limited to just major subdivisions, or is it going to be limited, or is it going to include minor subdivisions as well?
It will include all subdivisions.
All subdivisions?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't think I remember seeing that in the language. If it let's look at that, and make sure that it's in the language at the, as we move up. if we move
What
up.
it says is it shall be required at the end of all dead-end streets within public right-of-ways. So if it's a family partition, that's not a public right-of-way, they can do a T or an L turnaround. If you're a major or minor subdivision and you're doing public right-of-ways, it's going to be a cul-de-sac.
Okay.
That's a different question.
I'm fine, thanks.
Yes, sir.
You answered it twice in that one answer, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, our chair will also say, you know, I support the change as well. The cul-de-sac, they're more functional, you know, they're more aesthetically pleasing. What's that?
I got
I've seen it pass further than then I've seen Mr. Billy.
So he's going to ask, what if it's a private subdivision? That is not a public right-of-way, and you
Yeah,
can do
that's-
T or L turnarounds. We're not distinguishing in private servitudes of access or private roads. I believe that's what he's going to ask. You need to go to the microphone. You need to go to the microphone.
Excuse me, Billy Aguilar. My question again is, if it's a private street, because, for instance, Meadows at Oak Grove subdivision I just finished building, all the streets in there are private streets. So can I have a T turnaround where I want to on private streets?
Is your T turnaround in a public servitude?
Yes.
It's not, it's private, it's a public servitude, but it's not dedicated to the parish.
Loophole.
So all, y'all not, the parish is not accepting subdivision streets in the maintenance system. Either you do a tax incentive thing where the people are taxed per lot to maintain their own roads,
Road
and or they
district.
public. That particular subdivision is all, private. All that particular subdivision, every street in there is private streets. The drainage system's private. Everything in the subdivision is private.
Okay, thank you.
Is that gonna apply to for private streets?
Mr. President?
Right now, under our subdivision code, private streets have to be built to subdivision standards and public standards, right?
Okay.
Changes my
On, okay. Clint, Mr. President?
Yeah. If you can get Ricky to emphasize the language there, it says public right away.
Yeah.
Yes, it's public rights of way. If it's a private street, then that's not considered the public right of way. Now, what Jerome said is true, because all streets, whether they're gonna be public or private, if they're in major minor subdivisions, have to be built to parish standards. But this would differentiate between public rights of way. So if somebody's doing a subdivision and they're gonna have private streets, then they will be allowed to do T turnarounds.
Okay. Thanks for that clarification. Councilman Lawler, I see you raising your hand back there. Make it snappy.
I want to tell you, I fully support this. One of the things that I have learned as transportation chairman is that cul-de-sacs have a lot of maintenance problems when they're made out of concrete. Large vehicles, school buses, dump trucks, garbage trucks especially, they make multiple passes and they rut. And one of the problems is putting soil cement down is much harder on the edges, on both sides, on any curve. So usually you don't get as strong of a base around the edges, and it creates rutting. One thing that I would suggest that we look into is requiring that a cul-de-sac be made out of concrete, because that tends to be more durable, it lasts longer, and based on what I've learned, you have less maintenance problems over time. Just something that I think we can think about. If this passes on its way to council, maybe we can look into that and see if that's something that could be added to it, and see, what kind of cost differentiations there are between doing that, either asphalt or concrete. Just a thought. Thank y'all. And
Thank you.
This is a good bill.
Okay. All right, any more comments from, no? All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
Motion by Mr. Cagnolati.
Make a motion to amend.
All right, we have an amended motion by Councilman Joel Robert. Would you please state?
I just wanted to strike the bottom part out. A T turnaround will be allowed only where the planning commission, in its discretion, determines there may be a need for future connectivity to adjoining properties or on private servitudes of access, I say just take it out. I mean, you can do that with the cul-de-sac also. It takes out the, you know, the iffiness of it. Just have them without it.
Okay. Motion from Councilman Robert. Do we have a second on that motion? Motion fails to get a second. We will go back to Mr. Cagnolati's original motion. Can we get a second on that?
I move to amendment.
Okay.
Or should I say, I move to a suggestion, say at this stage. I think there is some unclarity in the language based upon the responses that the parish president and Mr. Compton provided to us regarding public versus private. I believe that we need a legal opinion to help us a determination. Gentlemen, I appreciate your interjection that you have no intention of applying this to private streets on public right-of-ways, but that's not what the language in this document is telling us. The language in this document is clear. It's telling us public. And if there's any ambiguity, I prefer that we would err on the basis of getting a legal opinion to make that determination. So I move that we send this matter back to Planning and Zoning for review, subsequent to a legal opinion on the determination and the assurances that we received from the Planning Department.
Okay. Do we have a second for Councilman Ogeron's motion?
Can I make a second on
Oh.
Cagnolati?
Hang on, I'm trying to remember. This came from planning, correct, as well? Okay.
We can go back.
Parish President, comment?
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, we can certainly look at gathering more information, also getting a legal opinion, and coming back to strategic. It's already passed. So we'd be happy to gather all that information, come back to this committee with that information, if deemed necessary. We'd be happy to do that. Instead of sending it back to planning, having another discussion, sending it back here, and then back to council. But we're happy to get all that information for you if you would prefer, and we can send it back to this committee before moving further to the council. Just a suggestion.
I would be good to say we pull this from tonight's vote and we hear it 30 days at the next planning commission meeting, subsequent to a legal opinion.
And I'll meet.
All right, so.
Hang
Hang
vote on
on.
this?
Hang on. So Councilman Ogeron making a motion to send it back to our planning department and then bring it back to strategic for next month?
Next month, will be perfectly fine, yes.
All right.
That's
Do we-
perfect. I think that's the right thing to do. That way we can get a legal determination on what is public and what is private and make sure that we're making the right vote for the public.
Okay. Do we have a second for Councilman Ogeron's motion?
Second.
All right. Mr. Lambert? Okay. Any opposition? The chair will vote in opposition. Yeah, I am.
Oh, you're, okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't make that clear.
Sorry, I didn't-
I am objecting to sending it back to planning. Any other objections?
Yeah, I agree with you there.
That's all the vote.
All right. Motion passes 3-2 to go back to our planning department and come back to strategic in July. Now, okay, item 5F, discussion and approval proposed modifications to the traffic study policy. Let's see, we want to eliminate the discrepancy of the level of service requirement found in traffic study policy by modifying the language to the following. Let's see, section contents and format, paragraph 8 would be the objective of the applicant shall be to maintain or improve the existing level of service. An overall level of service, D, shall be considered acceptable for each road segment and approaches to each intersection. And then we are eliminating the next sentence, which reads, where level of service D is not existing, or the existing level of service cannot be achieved with improvements, mitigation, a description of impacts, constraints, mitigation, measures analyzed, and results shall be provided. Next paragraph. A proposed development which is subject to the traffic impact analysis requirements of this policy shall be disapproved. We are striking may and replacing it with shall be disapproved when the results of the required TIA demonstrate that the proposed project will overburden existing roadway system by causing a reduction in servitude of affected roadways, negatively impacts the safety of the roadway, or is below the adopted level of service D. And before I open up public comment, I will just make a comment on this. The reason this is on the agenda, as recent as I believe March it was, with the proposal of a development, it was arbitrarily argued amongst our planning and zoning members what exactly overall level of service means. So in Ascension Parish, if any road is worse than a D, then it does not meet the criteria for a major or minor subdivision to be there. And some committee members interpret that as overall, if you studied 5 intersections, you can have 2 Fs, a D, and 2 Cs, and your average is D. Overall, it's a D, even though you had 2 Fs in there. And the proposal that I'm giving is saying that any leg, any road segment or approaches to each intersection will have to be D or better. So if there's any Fs, any Es, it's just it shall not be approved. It's basically I'm trying to clean up some language. Apparently, we left some gray area whenever we modified it, and that is my proposal for tonight. Public comment. Billy Aguilar. Mr. Billy. All right. Mr. Derek Murphy.
Council members, Derek Murphy again. I was actually the one speaking at that March meeting that you're talking about. Just clarification, the term overall wasn't all the intersections combined. The term overall was for each intersection as a whole, but not all the intersections put together. There are several areas in this parish where you have a major highway as well as a smaller approach, such as the case that was discussed in March was 73 White Road. Those type of intersections or those approaches are designed where those to allow the most people possible through on that highway and allow a little bit longer wait time on the side roads. So the overall, the way, I'm not a PTOE or a professional traffic operations engineer, but the way it's calculated is it takes that wait times from every approach, calculates that based on, the formulas of the ITI, and that determines whether it's A, B, C, D, E, or F as far as that particular intersection is concerned. Not all of them averaged out. So if an intersection is an F, then the intersection's an F. If an approach is an F or an E, but the overall intersection is a D or better, a lot of times that's on purpose based on the signal timing, based on if they have a light there, based on if they have actuators in the pavement, things like that. So the word overall in the traffic policy was, the way we were looking at it is that the intersection, looking at every approach and the average of those approaches for that one intersection alone, not averaging everything. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear, that the intersections a lot of times are designed to have some people waiting on the lesser roads to allow the most traffic through on the major roads. Thank you.
I'm trying to figure out if we were at the same planning and zoning meeting. That's not the argument I heard that night. All right, Mr. Billy.
Thank you again, Mr.
Welcome back.
Mr. Melanson. The existing language in the ordinance is pretty specific as it is. If you can't get the intersection to a level D, then you can't develop it. But if you can mitigate it, and if you do turning lanes or whatever you need to do to get it to level D, I think you should be able to do it. And then I guess anyway, if you can mitigate it and get it to come to level D, then you ought to be able to do that. If a developer's willing to spend a whole lot of money to do that, whatever it takes, then he should be allowed to do the development. Thank you.
Let's see. Let me go through my sheets here. Mr. Richard Cormush?
Good evening. Richard Carmouche. Thank you for your time. I've recently become a little bit more interested in local politics, trying to learn all these traffic impact studies and all these different ordinances. And
Run now.
I'm not envious of y'all, not at all. But listening to some of these arguments today, you know, I understand that the delicate balance y'all have, listening to constituents with emotional concerns, with scientific data, and the difference in that and weighing that. I like I said, I don't envy your position. In reference to the traffic impact study, and I was at that meeting as well, and I'm very glad that y'all are putting this forward to make this clarification, because I really didn't understand the idea of averaging out an approach that was below an acceptable safety level. So the scientific data is there, saying that approach is unsafe. But we're going to take an average to ignore it. So the people that are traveling at that specific time on that approach at a less than safe condition, we're just going to roll those away and not worry about it, and it averages out to a better one? I mean, no, that's not the way we do it. If it's really about safety and it's about the data's in front of you. The traffic impact study's there. Those areas were said to be unsafe. So, I mean, if they're unsafe, they're unsafe. I am for infrastructure first, you know, before development, definitely. I think it's a lot more time for action and not words, no more promises. I want to see something happen before we start growing, because if we just keep growing, we can grow out of our pants. So I just ask, I want to show my support for this clarification. And if it's a F or below D at any approach or any leg, I mean, we need to give that serious consideration and think about the safety of our citizens that are traveling the roads. So, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cormush. And just for clarification on something that Mr. Aguilar brought up, so if someone can make an improvement to an intersection, we're not stopping them from allowing them to make an improvement, do an impact study, and improve that. And if I remember correctly from our meetings, this strike through is just a line that doesn't mean anything. It's just saying if level of service D is not existing and cannot be reached, the results are going to be provided. I don't think the results do us any good, right? That's all we did there?
Yes.
Okay.
Basically.
I just wanted to clarify that. Okay. Mr. Bart Wagesback?
I wanted to get a little clarity on the section about action based on TIA mitigation. It says any existing roadway system by causing a reduction in service of affected roadways, a couple other items, then or service level below D. Like if you're at a B and the traffic study comes back and the grade goes down to a C, that's a reduction. Does that intersection have to be brought back up to a B? Is that what this is saying, or is it just if you're below a D?
Let me see. Give me a second. That's the last sentence on the second paragraph?
Correct.
Okay. It shall be disapproved when results of required TIE demonstrate that the proposed project will overburden the existing roadway system by causing a reduction in service of affected roadways, negatively impacts the safety of the roadway, or is below the adopted level of service. We're not changing anything there. Whatever that is, I mean, would you like to clarify? But that sentence has always been there. The only thing we did in that paragraph was change may to shall.
I see, but I'm just curious.
No, no, it's a
You know,
good question.
What does that mean? Because it doesn't seem logical that if you had an A and your
Yeah, and
development
it
caused it to go
shouldn't,
to
yeah.
a B, that you need to go spend $500,000 for improve it back up to an A. And so that the next guy that comes 3 roads down has to spend $500,000 to,
Okay.
you know, like I just would, if that's what it means, then, you know, I would like to look at that, I guess. Or I'd like to know just moving forward.
Is that what it reads? If we drop a level of service from an A to a B or a B to a C, that it shall be?
The way that I interpret it, yes, that's what it means.
So I would just suggest
I do agree with you
figuring out a
there.
way to
Yeah.
reword that to where, you know, it's
Reduction
a
of
little more
service.
realistic.
Okay, thank you. That's
Okay.
any other comment?
Well, I just wanted to say, just on a side note, since we're talking about, you know, all of this, you know, like I mentioned, I've lived in Ascension Parish my entire life. So I know there's a lot of development going on, but, you know, we keep talking about this as if nothing's ever happened. You know, there's been no improvements, but if you drive around the parish right now compared to maybe 3-4 years ago, I don't think you can get past 1 or 2 intersections before you hit some improvements. There's turn lanes going in, there's widening of roads, there's improvements. I mean, it's all over there's projects going all over that's gonna help the parish. So there are things that are being done, you know, and have been put in place over the last few years that are positive, you know, but we keep talking about things as if, you know, nothing has ever changed, but, you know, people have put some things into place, and I'm sure there's more, you know, good things coming, but we can't just keep saying the same things that we said 10 years ago, as if nothing's happened between then and now, because we are moving in the right direction, is all I want to say. And it'd be nice to acknowledge it sometimes.
Thank you, thank you. Parish President.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. That was not the intention, so it is something that we need to write and clarify.
Yeah, I agree.
The
I don't-
true intention was to be any leg under a D, and that simply came up as the particular development on Highway 73. If Highway 73 doesn't qualify as a below-average road, there's no road in Ascension Parish other than maybe Highway 30. I mean, this is the reason why we have this ordinance. People who live on 73 don't take 73 to work and home because they can't afford to sit in traffic for 45 minutes to an hour. So if that road doesn't qualify, I don't know what we're doing with the requirement in the first place. But that was not the intention, so I'd like to be able to have staff rewrite that to clarify that.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was not the intention. Of
Yeah,
it going from an
it-
A to a B and having to pay for it to go back up.
Yeah, absolutely. If we're
We're
dropping
happy
A to
to
B
do
and
that
Bs to
and-
Cs, I don't think that's anything that the developer should have to take on at all.
Be able to come back in a month from now to provide you with that corrected language and clarification.
Mr. Ogeron?
Thank you, Mr.
Well,
Chair.
I'm sorry, I'm all over the place. Ms.
Well, if
Je-
we're pulling it, we're going to still, we're going to continue with public comment?
Yeah, I think we should, yeah. Yeah, we have one more speaker.
Okay.
Ms. Teresa Robert. If y'all see Ms. Jessica roll her eyes at me, you have to let me know that I'm getting off course.
Thank you. I was also at that Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and I was glad to see Mr. Carmouche is here tonight, Mr. Argeron, because you are his councilman. And we were all there and heard the same things and saw the same things. And I think it's very interesting that some of the builders are here and telling us that this is just rules and regs, or the certain roads they can come in and build, and you're just supposed to have a much longer waiting period. And some of the bigger roads, the last one Mr. Wagsbeck talking about, we've done so many improvements. Well, the truth of the matter is, yes, there've been a handful of improvements, but they have been because they've been required by this parish and by this Planning and Zoning Commission as they're trying to improve the health and the safety of parish residents and people who travel through here and people who work here and companies that are here. And we really appreciate y'all trying to pull some of this together. It's very disappointing to see that safety of children in school buses, let's just throw it out because that's such a major thing, but please protect the citizens here.
Ma'am, that's not, may I address that last comment? May I address her last comment?
I don't think it's appropriate, right?
Open it up for Daya's commentary, and I'll go there.
Okay. Let me make sure we have no more speakers. All right, we will open up for public comment.
Thank you. Thank you. First off, Mr. President, when you guys get back together and go back to the drawing table and try to redraft this, I strongly urge you to get legal involved so that there's an opportunity to look for ambiguities. I understand, as an attorney, I can't build a house. I can't draw a house. So I call on the engineers, I call on the architects to help me with that. And I think the same thing holds true for our engineers. As great as they are, as great as their engineering minds are, sometimes they get focused and they're not able to look at the gray areas. And I think it's necessary for us to start getting legal more involved with it. So I would appreciate that. And secondly, my comment for the public. There is not a person that's sitting on this dais that does not fully consider every one of our votes, how it benefits you and how it benefits our children. I've got 3 children that are growing up in this parish. And everything that we've done, including sacrificing time and energy to get on this dais, is for those of us to try to help considering public safety, public health. And for anyone to come to the podium and accuse us of not caring about the safety of the children, shame on you. That is not the situation here.
All right, Mr.
And I speak for everyone on this dais.
Point of order.
Yeah, that's enough. Okay. Chair will now entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass.
All right, we have a motion from Councilman Joe Robert to approve. Do we have a second? All right, we do not have a second. Is anybody else gonna make a motion or no?
Mr. Chairman,
Secretary has a question.
I don't know if it requires a motion, but I suggest that we go back to administration on this and have them come back to us in a month or so.
Do we need a motion to send it back to admin or?
They can look, they can revisit it and do whatever they want at a future
Okay.
time.
Well, yeah, just say we're
Okay.
gonna.
Just being sure. Thank you.
I mean, if you want to, you can make a motion, but I don't think you necessarily.
Okay. All right, so item F will go back to administration to reword. And Mr. Wagasback, good catch. I do appreciate that. That was definitely not my intention, so I appreciate that. All right, item G. Discussion and approval of a proposed provision to provide mandatory interconnectivity between subdivisions. Mandatory interconnectivity to increase internal connections between subdivisions and to lessen the traffic on the parish major street network. Interconnectivity must be provided. This provision is in the code and will be enforced by planning staff, who will insist that a sign be placed at the location of a future interconnection indicating that the street will connect on a future street when development occurs on vacant parcels. That is item G. Let's see. Mr. Billy Aguilar.
Thank you all again. I really don't know how I feel about this. Interconnectivity is a thing that's it's been very stressful in this parish over the years, and I've been in many heated debates in this room right here where people in the existing subdivision did not want a new subdivision connected into their subdivision. To be honest with you, I really don't care. I just don't. I'm just saying it ought to not be something that's mandatory when you can connect it, you have to connect. I think it needs to come to a public hearing and let it be discussed for each individual subdivision when they do it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Wagasback, I see yours is scratched out. Did you? Oh, oh. Okay. All right, Miss Christina Guidry. Is Miss Christina still here? No? Okay. Miss Christina was in favor.
I think Mr. Lawler wants.
Mr. Councilman Lawler. Make it snappy.
Mr. Councilman?
Mr. Councilman Lawler. From now on, you're going to sit back there.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry. No, this is something I'm very interested in. We tried to do this a while back, and it ran into some opposition because I was way too broad in doing it. It was going to affect current subdivisions. I think if it only applies to new subdivisions, I think that is something that the people will accept, because I think it's a good idea. It's a safety issue with regards to if you have an accident in front of a subdivision and there's one way in or one way out, or even with flooding or something like that, where the front of it gets flooded, the back of it doesn't. I think it's really good to allow multiple ingress and egress for subdivisions. So it's something I support, as long as it's only for new subdivisions and we're not forcing any current existing subdivisions to connect unless the people want that. That's all I had to say. I kept it brief.
Thank you. Okay, I believe that's all my public speakers on this agenda item. All right, we'll open up comment. I'm going to start with Mr. Cagnolati to my left.
No comment right now.
No comment. Mr. Joel Robert.
You should have started on the other side.
All right. Mr. Lambert.
And this is, being around, being around a while, we've had this, it's a good idea, but I'm gonna tell you, you line up the whole highway out here when you're talking about connecting. I don't care if it's new subdivision or some of our older ones, and, good idea, but, a lot of folks just don't want people coming across or tying in with the existing subdivision, so.
Mr. Ogeron. Oh, I'm sorry. You good? Mr. Ogeron?
No comment.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr.
just one
Cagnolati.
thought, there again, talking about applying this to new subdivisions. What if a subdivision abuts an old subdivision? What then? And I would think, I'd like to see legal look at this very closely. I don't think they've done that in the past. We could ask Mr. Parrington or somebody, or get an expert to look at the legality of us mandating that this happen and occur.
So if I understand correctly, this is already code, correct? It's basically y'all just informing us that we're going to start enforcing it.
So it is in code?
Yeah, this is.
Yes, sir. And Councilman Cagnolati, it says vacant parcels. So if there's an existing subdivision, we're not requiring that interconnectivity. It's where future development could occur. And I concur with Councilman Lambert. When that existing subdivision that's had a sign there for 20 years is now being told that they're tying in to the neighborhood next door, they're going to fight us, and we'll have to deal with it at that time. But smart planning, safety planning, all that stuff just makes sense.
Mr. President, comment?
You know, when we look at interconnectivity throughout our parish and the lack thereof, you know, always go back to the city of Gonzales. You know, when you got a certain road shut down, there's always a way and an alternate way. And I think the city of Gonzales has done a tremendous job in creating that grid system and interconnectivity. All their new roads that they're proposing, that's that first consideration, is an alternate route, shifting traffic. And I would hope we move into that direction in the future of that connectivity, so ensure that, you know, school buses don't have to go in and out on our state roads and causing traffic problems during peak traffic times, and as well as our garbage trucks and things like that. And I just think the city of Gonzales has done a tremendous job in the past of creating a great grid system of connectivity and alternate routes to move around the city of Gonzales. And I hope we are headed in that direction at some point in time in Ascension Parish. Thank you.
Mr. Robert?
I'll make a motion to pass it.
Okay. We have
I feel like the way.
Well,
that
I mean,
this
we're not
par-
passing anything. It's basically just informative.
Let me take a step back. I feel like the way that this parish is and where we're going now, it's inevitable that we're going to have to go with interconnectivity. Our other option here is to have every subdivision go off onto a major highway, Highway 44, Highway 42, Highway 30, keep choosing them, and it'll just create congestion. You know, by doing interconnectivity and planning it in the future, we're also utilizing more of our parish.
Ma'am, I'm sorry. Yes, ma'am, please.
She had a car.
Oh, she had a card?
Yeah.
Did you? I'm sorry.
Earlier, I didn't have one.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, ma'am,
But
please.
since Mr. Clint talked, I want to talk. Most of this parish is developed. A majority of it is developed. I don't know the percentage, but a lot of it is. And now we're going to talk about making it a grid system. I think that's just, I don't want my subdivision opening up to another subdivision. And I think most people don't. And I think we're a little behind on the whole grid thing. That's all I want to say.
Okay. All right, would you like to finish your comment real quick, Mr. Robert?
As I was saying, we cannot continue to have a development go out onto a major highway, another development out onto a major highway. Because if we do that, we're going to do nothing but sit in traffic for 45 minutes to get 2 miles down the road. Now, if you don't want interconnectivity, don't buy one of these new subdivisions that make interconnectivity. I mean, that's up to you. But we have got to move forward, and we're not going to move forward by sitting in traffic all day, every day. I make a motion to pass this.
Mr. Chairman, do we need a motion? I mean, if it's already in the code.
Yeah,
we're
it's
just
already
acknowledging
code,
it?
it's already code. The administration
don't
is,
make a motion to-
is just
Yeah.
informing us.
Okay.
For time's sake, I will just, I'll make a comment as well. I think interconnectivity is important. I think it's needed. Every subdivision in this parish is on a road that the people on that road didn't want that subdivision, especially with neighborhoods that are located on the corner of lots. If you have two neighborhoods on a corner and they're connected, it gives you alternate routes to bypass a red light, a stop sign, anything like that for emergency services. So I'm glad we're bringing it up. I'm glad we're going to be enforcing it. Is there any other comments from anybody? All right, we will.
Do we need a motion to pass this?
No, this is already existing law. Okay, moving on to item H. Discussion and approval of proposed changes to Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-408, Procedure for construction. All utilities installed prior to final plat approval. Let's see. Currently, only parish-owned utilities are required to be installed prior to final plat approval. We recommend that all utilities, including water, electric, gas, and other non-parish-owned utilities, be installed prior to final plat approval. ULDC Section 17-48.C.1 shall be modified as follows. When construction on all improvements within the public right-of-way and public servitudes, in addition to private streets pursuant to paragraph 17-4024 of the subdivision regulations, we are eliminating a sentence here, and any infrastructure that is publicly owned and maintained is complete. And then it will continue on, and in accordance with the approved plans and specification and complies with the provisions of these regulations, the developer's engineer shall certify such and request in writing final approval and acceptance from the designated engineering review agency. This request shall be given to the Planning Commission and the Department of Public Works. Item H, Mr. Derek Murphy.
Good evening again. This one's deja vu. There was a time, I forget exactly when it was, but there was utilities required prior to getting your final plat. It was mainly around electrical and water. The other utilities were really not included. However, that's even worse because you have ETEL and Cox and AT&T who won't even come in until there's a number of houses in there that actually support them. Gas, some subdivisions don't have gas, plus they're not really required for the houses to start getting construction. these are public utilities, water, electric, all these are public utilities. We don't have any control whatsoever. The original reason why it started coming up was, they were jacking and boring under the road and so forth, so the parish inspectors wanted to be out there when the utility companies were inspecting, or when the utility companies were installing, so they thought that if we didn't have the final plat yet, they would come. They had no jurisdiction. It was, these are public entities. They do what they want, how they want. They make you pay months in advance. And, you really have no control over them at all. Even the developer to the point, or anyone. So, you have no control over their timeline. You have no control over anything. They come in when they want. So, we've had this, we had issues with it. It reverted back to not being required because of those issues. And so I just ask y'all to consider that it's already been this way once, didn't work, and that's why we do it today like we're doing it. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Billy?
Thank you again, gentlemen. Glad to have the opportunity to speak to y'all again. Like Derek said, we have no control whatsoever over these public utility companies, and I understand the problem. Once we finish the subdivision, we plant grass on it, it looks real nice and neat. All the utility companies come in there and destroy the whole thing. I understand that. But we have no control over them whatsoever. For instance, Mr. Lambert, I'm gonna have to pick on you here. Meadows at Oak Grove, second final was done 6 months ago, final plat was signed. They just came in last month and ran the gas in the second filing, 5-6 months after the subdivision was completed. It's just something that we can't have. We have hard enough time getting Baton Rouge Water or Ascension Water to come install the water because it's not a public dedicated servitude. A lot of these utility companies don't want to work on private property unless there's a dedicated servitude. Well, servitudes don't get dedicated until after the final plat is signed. I don't know how else we can do it, but we've gone through this in the past. It just doesn't work getting all the utilities installed. And like Derek said, the phone companies, the cable companies, they won't come in until there's 20, 30, 40 houses in a subdivision before they ever do anything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bart Wagersback.
I'm basically going to just say the same thing, with the utilities having zero control of their timing. Where I live, it is a new subdivision. I've lived there over a year. A year later, Cox comes in and decides to start running their line. You know, there's no way to hold up, you know, the subdivision until all the utilities are in, or else it just would maybe never go to final plat. So just wanted to kind of point that out. All right.
Thank you. All right. Start with you, Mr. Ogeron. Or,
That was it?
Any comment from staff?
Yeah, I'd like to give you a little history, and what happened here is that about 3 or 4 years ago, we eliminated the ability of the developers to put up performance bonds. And the performance bonds allows a developer to come in, bond for all the infrastructure that's in the subdivision, basically. And theoretically, they could bond for the entire subdivision, record the final plat, have lots without any infrastructure out there. That's the extreme, obviously. So as a compromise to the development community, we removed the ability to put up performance bonds, but we allowed them to move forward with electric and without having electric and water in there. But now that we have advanced as a parish and we're starting to take in sewer plants, we're requiring the sewer plants to be inspected before the final plat's approved. Right now, we're having to pull in portable generators. We're having to get an alternate water supply in order to test the sewer plants before we go forward with final plat approval. So this is one of the reasons that we're recommending making this change, is that so that we can get the sewer plants inspected prior to having the final plat approved, all right?
All we need to add is water, electric, and sewer.
I agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I have no problem with that. If
All right, entertain a
Mr.
motion.
Wagersback.
Real quick, please.
He still had a minute and 37 seconds
Yeah,
up
no,
on the
no.
clock.
I try to let everybody talk who
Yeah,
wants to
so
talk.
like in that situation, like maybe to have something like developer must provide electric and water for sewer inspection or something like that would be better than all the utilities have to be in the subdivision. You know,
That's
like,
kind of what we're
you know,
discussing
let's,
with that, yeah.
let's solve the problem without creating, you know, many other ones. You know, hey, that's understandable, so, you know, require that, but don't go too far with it. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, we'd be willing to work with him on coming up with a solution, but we would like to see permanent power and permanent water there so that we can test the plant. That's how we reach that goal. I think it's something we can work out with the community, but we as a parish want to protect ourselves when we start accepting major infrastructure like a sewer plant.
Okay, so, so staff is looking for water, power, and sewer treatment plant to be finalized?
And gas.
That's the objective right now.
And gas?
Some
No, just
some
water,
subdivisions
power,
don't have
sewer?
gas, so we're not worried about the gas necessarily right now. But if that's a utility that's to be installed in the subdivision, we'd like it installed, right? So what we're saying by the language that you're seeing right here is that all utilities have to be installed, whether it's gas, electric, water, that are outside the purview of the parish, including, you know, streets, sewer lines, you know, everything else. It's all the infrastructure of the subdivision.
All right. What would you like to? Hmm? All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'll make a
Discussion?
motion to pass it, but we're staying strictly with the water, the gas, and the electric, meaning they're required to have water, gas, and electric before final plat approval.
Water, gas, and sewer. I'm sorry, water, electric, and sewer.
Yeah, not gas, sewer, yeah.
All right, can you clarify your motion?
Yeah. I make a motion that we follow, that we approve this, but we only hold power, water, and sewer to be the utilities that are provided before final plat approval.
Okay. Mr. Robert with a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Mr.
Discussion?
Lambert. And Mr. Ogeron has a comment?
Yes, thanks.
We do have a motion and a second. and
Right, but you
comment.
didn't give us the opportunity to discuss ahead of time.
Yeah, I mean, he made a motion first. We can discuss after the motion.
Great. I'm going to go back to the black letter of the law and taking a look at the document that we have presented before us. And again, guys, it's, everybody has their own little niche up here on this dais, and I guess mine is making sure that we're crossing Ts and dotting Is. And I'm sorry, but I am not comfortable with, hey, guys, pass this ordinance and we promise we're only going to do X, Y, and Z. We've got a current parish president, we got a current administration, and that's great. But guess what? In 4 years, we could have a new parish president, we could have new individuals sitting in planning and zoning, and their interpretations are going to be different. That is why we're here today. And I guarantee you that's why we're here today, is because a previous administration did something that the current administration is saying, I don't think that's the right thing. And we need to make sure that when we're going to create these laws that everyone has to follow, that these laws will be applicable to everyone across the parish and is going to be applicable throughout for the entire future until the law is changed. And gray area in these laws, in these ordinances, in these regulations are only going to create further chaos and further confusion. Again, I'm looking at this as, I'm looking at a developer that's going to have to expend all this money putting in water, electrical, all other utilities, and then we have a planning commission that says, no, we're not going to give you the final plat approval. And now we're stuck with that. And I'm not saying you guys would do that, but the next group might. And we need to be careful about that. Problems we're having here today is because folks from previous administrations put things in order that were not clear. And this is one of those that unless we have it documented properly, black and white, we can't go forward with this. You just can't, guys, because you're going to continue creating chaos, you're going to continue creating confusion, and people are going to try to interpret these documents and there's going to be multiple interpretations, and we're going to get right back where we are today. Where 4 years from now, we're going to have a new administration that's going to come forward and say, let's scratch this and let's do something different, because that's not what we really intended. Again, if you guys want this, go to legal, make sure the corrections are approved by legal, that there's no ambiguity, and let's get this thing done. But trying to make changes on the run is not the way to politic, not the way to police the parish. It's not the way to govern the parish. You can't make changes on the run. You have to get these things done right the first time. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Ms. Cagnolotti.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to offer a substitute motion that we send this back to administration
Okay.
for detailed language that it can be, run it through legal and bring it back to this committee next month.
I'll
Okay.
second.
So we have a substitute motion from Mr. Cagnolotti to send back to administration and then come back to strategic next month, and a second from Mr. Ogeron. Is there any opposition? So
I have
moved.
opposition, but let's go ahead and while we're on this. Jerome, as far as the problems that you had, clearly it was the electric and water. And now that we are in the sewer business, you trying to, get those three things accomplished, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this is an easy fix, but, a lot of these subdivisions are not gonna require, ETL, all these other, companies that are coming in, it's different. Times have changed. A lot of, subdivisions, they don't go with gas. So, this could be a quick fix, and, I don't have a problem with it.
Get it back in 30 days, correct.
And
Okay, so we're sending it back to administration, and we're going to, note that water, electrical, and the sewer treatment plant is the three that we will require before final plat. Is that what we're agreeing on up here? Okay. Any objection? So moved. All right, on to item I. Discussion and approval of proposed changes to Appendix 9, Section 8, drainage pipe. Let's see, staff is recommending to change Ascension Parish subdivision construction specification, Section 8, to eliminate the use of corrugated steel pipe for side and rear drains and drainage outfalls. So this one's pretty simple. We're deleting every single word under,
Corrugated pipe.
yeah, under, let's see, I'm sorry, under corrugated steel piping and couplings. So we're proposing Ascension Parish completely does away with all steel piping for culverts, drainage, outfall, everything. We do have, let's see, Mr. Derek Murphy? Nope. Mr. Derek Murphy is against but chooses not to speak. Mr. Billy? Mr. Billy against, chooses not to speak. And, okay. I'll make a comment on this real quick. I've spent quite a few field trips with Mr. Ron Savoy since taking office in January, and I don't believe there's anything that makes him lose more sleep in parish-wide than corrugated steel culverts, and he rides around and sees in the parish. They within 5, 10, maybe 15 years, they start to rot, collapse, and they cause major issues in the driveways, along the roads, and in the back and rear of major subdivisions. So that's why we're proposing this. It costs us a lot of money. It's cheaper on the front end to put them down, but for years and years we fight it. And Mr. Ron, if you'd like to make a comment, I'm happy to hear.
Yeah, if you don't mind, thank you for the opportunity to speak on this, but, routine maintenance on the side of the roads is the main area we see this, but also in the subdivision developments, we need to make sure that we look in the code of the outfall pipe structures. We need to specify in that we do not want concrete pipes to be the final pipe that discharges into the major outfalls, because they're only 8-foot lengths, and erosion, the last pipe will fall off. So we want to make sure that we
correct that in the ordinance as well. We put like a A2000 requirement at that point, because they come in 20-foot lengths, and you have a lot more material to work with at that point. But other than that, the metal covers are a major problem
Okay.
for maintenance.
Any comments, any other comments from staff? Let's see, who do I start with this time? You, Mr. Cagney? No comment? Mr. Robert?
Yeah, I think this is a major problem. That's an easy fix. I mean, they right. We know this. Let's stop using them.
Okay. Ms. Lambert? Mr. Ogeron? Good to go. All right, and I concur, with all the negative effects of the steel metal piping.
I'll make a motion.
All right, I have a motion to approve from Mr. Joel Robert. Second from Mr. John Cagney. Any opposition? No opposition? Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Councilman Ogeron opposes.
Councilman Ogeron, how do you vote?
Nay.
Councilman Dempsey Lambert?
Yes.
Councilman Chase Mollisong?
Yes.
Councilman Joel Robert?
Yes.
Councilman John Cagney?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-1 to go to the full council. All right. On to item J. And this is more or less just, let me see, I don't think we have items for additional research and discussion, restricting borings under existing roads and the placement of sleeves to accommodate the utilities in a subdivision, and re-evaluate subdivision specs. I believe staff want to make comments on this. Is it more or less just open discussion? Well, I'm sorry, hang on one second. Let's see, Mr. Billy Aguilar.
Thank y'all again for letting me speak. I don't know what the answer to this thing is, but you can't restrict boring under existing roads. It just, you got to bore the existing roads, period. The problem we've had is as I've seen, water companies go out there and bore 16-inch hole on the road when they need to put 8-inch pipe in it. That's wrong. I think the boring companies need to pull permits to bore on the existing roads, so somebody go out there and inspect to see what they're doing. Because you can drill an 8-inch hole under a road and pull an 8-inch pipe through it, and you have no voids at all around the pipe. I think that's the answer to this, because if you look at the gas lines are only on one side of the street everywhere in the parish. The water lines are on only one side of the street everywhere in the parish. So if you're building a new house over here, you've got to bore into the road to do your water and your gas, period. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Billy. I don't believe we have any other public speakers on this topic. Is that correct? Okay. Mr. Drone?
Yeah, Mr. Molson, Mr. Chairman, we'd like to look at this a little further, and that's why we have it under additional research and discussion items, and talk with Mr. Aguilar. But I think one of the problems that we're having is that we're looking at some brand-new subdivisions. Streets are just poured down, and we're having some of the issues of them boring under the brand-new streets. That's one of the things we'd like to look at in detail, all right? So.
And one thing that we've discussed is potentially putting sleeves under the road, to where whenever they got to cross underneath the road, they're going to go under these pre-existing sleeves that were down before the road was laid.
Yeah, and we can do that in new subdivisions, hopefully, and we'd like to work out the details of that, all right?
Okay.
And the other one is the subdivision specifications. We're actually looking at modification to the sewer specs and some of the other specs that are in that document, and we'll be coming to you for authorization to make those changes. Right?
Okay.
And we're working on those now.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming out, everybody who spoke, staff, my 4 members, and at this time, Chair, entertain. All right, motion to adjourn. With a second. Have a good night.